Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. I'm Kevin, the Chief Community Officer at OpenExO. It's really great to be here with you. And as you can see on the screen, today we have Trae Ashlie-Garen with us, coming in from Calgary, Canada. And you can see there a number of people coming up in the coming weeks. And we actually start season 3 of OpenExO Live in September. We do still have some spots open in the new year, in 2022. So if you're interested in being on OpenExO Live and you, of course, are part of the OpenExO community, you can head over to the marketplace and apply to join us on OpenExO Live. And so before we get Trae up here on stage, I did get some words from some of our community. And the first one comes from Lars. And he just said, I first experienced the empowering coaching skills Trae brings into every engagement when she volunteered together with Jerry Mikulski to host weekly Ask Trae and Jerry sessions during the entire 2019 Educate for Life EXO Community Sprint. The value she gave to the sprint participants was incredible and always delivered with great empathy and care. Thank you again, Trae. Next up, we have from Jabeen. Trae and I met when she joined one of the 2 teams participating in the Justice Fast Track in Bogota, Colombia. From the very beginning, she stood out as an old soul with extraordinary capacities. Too numerous to mention here. She blew us all away with her ability to dive into the subject matter, deeply understanding, representing, and communicating the needs of stakeholders and the cutting-edge solutions that she and her team had developed. Through her systems approach to innovation, Trae powerfully brings an entire new dimension of thinking, learning, and relating within teams and communities. And lastly, we have from Vanessa, Trae is a genuine soul who is full of passion and genuine support. When you speak, she listens more intently than anyone I've ever met. Her presence, even on Zoom calls, makes people feel heard, special, and excited about co-creating. So without further ado, Trae, welcome to OpenExO Live.
What a beautiful introduction. Much gratitude. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. And so, Trae, we always start off just asking people to give us a bit of your backstory. So can you share a little bit about Trae and, how what's happened in your life, I guess, the summarized version until today.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Deeply grateful for this opportunity. Thank you. So pretty straightforward. I was born and raised in what is known as Treaty 7 territory, which is the nations of the Kainai, the Siksika, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda, which is Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I'm so Calgarian that both of my parents are Calgarian. So it's kind of unique in that sense. I've been self-employed for 28 years. Mostly how I've put food on the table has been through succession readiness training with family-run businesses and offices. I've also served as interim executive director, 4 different nonprofits over a 10-year period. I have been working foundations over 15 years in the brain science arena as a belief repatterning practitioner, and that's all about how the mind works to learn, and over a decade in community development. So I think really what I enjoyed the most and what shaped me the most has been the travels that I did later on. I was kind of a digital nomad where I traveled from 2008 to 2013. And so I just basically lived out of a suitcase, have laptop, will travel. So I lived in places like the United States, Australia, Italy, culminating with 2 months in India in 2013.
Well, that's definitely something that I can relate with, having done something similar-ish for only 2 years, and unfortunately, my travel being cut short in India due to COVID. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think is amazing by doing that is understanding how, as humanity, we actually are all so much more similar than generally maybe we like to think, and that so much is possible, right? And I think that this digital nomad trend is something that starts to drive more and more, and really I might change the way that we see the world. So I get quite excited about that.
I would agree. It's definite. I mean, yes, I've gotten a degree, and yes, worked in a variety of places with a variety of clients, but nothing has shaped me more than travel. Really. Yeah. No,
absolutely. I would agree 100%. And I just wanted to remind all those that are watching, if there are any questions you have or any comments you have throughout the show, please do throw those into the chat wherever you are. And so Trae, how did you actually join the OpenExO community, get involved with OpenExO and the EXO model?
Well, I kind of have to confess that I'm one of these people who starts books and often doesn't finish them. And so I had actually picked up the book Exponential Organizations in 2016 and really didn't finish it. But in 2017, Salim came to Calgary. The Calgary Chamber of Commerce had an event, and I heard Salim speak, and I went, I guess I better finish this book. So I immediately joined the book club, which was essentially how things started at that time. Yeah. And then, as you'll recall, sort of moved over to EXO Lever, and then has now become OpenExO. So I've really seen the evolution of what's happened. My interest was less on the corporate side and more around citizen-centered work. So, because my interest is more around collective collaboration across industries and interests instead of underneath or inside of an organization. And so when the privilege to participate in Bogota Fast Track came up, it was a no-brainer. It was like, okay, I'm going there. And then, of course, as Large so generously mentioned, being involved in the education track, and then also the EXO Unity Heart and Mind melds that were under Vanessa. So that's really sort of the connection that I have to the work. It's a bit different because I didn't pursue the certification, but deeply resonate with the attributes and the things that the group represents. So,
and do you have a personal MTP, and would you mind sharing it?
No problem at all. So my MTP is both, it is the exact same one, both personally and professionally. And that is scaling empathy and interdependence.
Okay. In terms of the interdependence angle, like what is it that you're really looking at there?
Well, it's really interesting coming from a brain science perspective and coming from the especially now with COVID and everything, now that we're online, there are certain skills, competencies, capacities that we possess as human beings that often aren't flexed in the work environment. And so at risk of saying that it's about bringing the humane back into humanity, that's essentially it. So I'm often brought in to assist what people consider the messy stuff, the personal stuff, the interactions. A prime example is an environment where a father and a daughter are working together, and the daughter is being raised up, and the father now needs to see the daughter as well as the customers need to see the daughter less as a daughter and more as a business partner and someone who can take on a leadership role. And so there's all the dynamics that happen with that. And so we need to learn to be more interconnected.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. And I know that you said that you look at sort of EXO from a slightly different lens. So, could you share that sort of like how you see the value of, you know, of the EXO model, and I guess, and the community as well.
Sure. So I mean, there's no doubt that OpenExO provides leading edge training and methodology and collaborations. And so if you think about the metaphor of yin and yang, right? It's more of a yang approach. And so I sort of lean more to the yin approach. And so from a brain science perspective, where I come from is that it doesn't really matter what kind of technologies we come up with. If we're not assisting humanity to exponentially adapt, then nothing we do really matters. And so it's an and also, not an either or. And so there's so much emphasis in the technology arena that I want to focus in on what's going to assist humanity to adapt, what's going to assist humanity to thrive and to sort of not even keep pace. I don't think it's about keeping pace. I think it's about sort of just landing how we're going to navigate, how we're going to thrive through transition, because no one can tell how that transition is going to land, whether it's going to be utopia or dystopia. And so if we can assist ourselves in the skills that matter, that are going to assist us through transition no matter what, that's where I want to place emphasis. And so that's where I give attention to very specific attributes and how those attributes help us to hold space for expanding those conversations. And what I found is that the EXO language of those attributes really creates scaffolding. It creates scaffolding and helps us to sort of enter into a more human conversation in the environments where typically that more human conversation might not happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like how you've explained there. Like it's giving you the language that you can then use to actually, you know, work with people, right? And all together having that understanding. And so what would you say are sort of like some of the sort of specific parts or specific attributes that really resonate with you, or you sort of enjoy the most?
So I would say number one would be experimentation, and it's not, again, not the structure of an experiment, but how our assumptions and how we think about how we're thinking is all interconnected to how we perceive experimentation. So instead of it about proving a hypothesis, it's more about what are the conditions that most accurately support experimentation to thrive. So that's, I would say that would be my number one. And then out of that comes engagement, autonomy, community. And then I would say sort of a fifth one on the periphery is staff on demand.
Awesome. I actually earlier today went and met up with a friend who started a coffee shop a couple years ago, and like, I mean, he comes from no education, was a dishwasher at a coffee shop, worked his way up to a barista, to the manager, and now started his own thing. And we're speaking about the EXO model, right? And how, as a coffee shop, not a digital company, as a coffee shop, he is looking to leverage different attributes. And experimentation was one where his big concern is failure, right? Because like failing is something he can't do. Like a lot of failures happened in life, and now no failure can happen. And how that's so difficult, and so working with him around the understanding that how good failure can be in moving you forward and experimenting and designing those experiments, very interesting stuff. And so, yeah, so I mean, in terms of sort of looking deeper, I guess, into some of the attributes, like how have you actually been out there using them, in the work that you do?
So there's a lot of talk about deep learning inside of exponential technologies, and one of the things that we're noticing, particularly in the regenerative platforms environment, where I've had the privilege of meeting some really amazing people just in the last 6 months, there's this real discussion and conversation about what it really takes to engage in deep listening, right? Or that generous listening, you know, that listening that bridges heart and mind. And so Winfinity has been just really taking off in terms of facilitating what we call inquiry clusters. And so it really is about individuals putting aside their roles, putting aside their judgments, putting aside their assumptions of what the way things have been or ought to be or should be, and just simply engaging in open inquiry. And so what that does is that really when you create those conditions and you create that space in small groups of anywhere from 5 to 8, then what happens is it really assists individuals to take their guard down and to really peel back on those assumptions and really dig into the values. And not only just values as sort of this motherhood kind of statement of, oh, we value respect, for example, but digging deeper into, okay, so what does that value look like in action? How are we choosing to interact with each other and have that be the foundation by which we proceed, instead of an orientation to a task or a goal or an object or a project? And so what we're discovering is that as we start moving really deeply into that relationship space and we start moving into that place of deep listening, then it is really easy to start taking individuals from very different backgrounds, having them in the same space, and having them interact with as human to human instead of agenda to agenda. And when you relate human to human, you start to find a critical path. And when that critical path forms, it's exciting because it's kind of like the spine, not a critical path in terms of task, but critical path in the sense of the why, right? That MTP. Why are we doing what we're doing? And then the finger isn't trying to convince the toe to be a finger. And the ear isn't trying to convince the kidney to be an ear. The ear is being a really good ear and the kidney's being a really good kidney. And they're going after the pieces that matter to them. But we all have an understanding of what that core critical path is. And that's the work that we're doing. And it's the most rewarding work I've probably ever done.
It sounds, you know, absolutely amazing. And, you know, if I think about what you sort of just explained there, and how, you know, how you can sort of lay over a lot of you know, exponential thinking, you know, and different attributes on that, you know, allowing for, you know, for autonomy and for community there, and it really sounds really fantastic to hear. And there's, you know, we definitely need to you know, understand, especially now, that human aspect of organizations, right? Because it can get so easily lost in everyone's behind the screen.
It's interesting because there's so much conversation about solidarity or loyalty to an organization or to a mandate, right? Or to a structure. And we're moving into a place now where if we can start having conversations about what it means to have solidarity as much as sovereignty between us as human beings and across organizational mandates, that it makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. And so Trae, we've pretty much come to the end of our time.
That was quick.
Some closing? I know, it's just like the click of a finger and we're done. But any closing thoughts that you may have as we close out today?
Okay. Well, I would say that from what I've been seeing, that there's this tendency that we put to have our confidence in what's certain, you know, and we're entering an era now where uncertainty is a constant, right? It is constant. And so there's this real sense of, oh, I have to get certain, you know, and where we're playing is we're playing in the space of what would it take for us to get more comfortable with uncertainty? What would it take for us to explore the uncertainty? And having the technology assist us, absolutely no doubt, we have that opportunity available to us. But ultimately, what is it going to take for us to cooperate? What's it going to take for us to collaborate and stop competing? And that's the sandbox that I want to play in. So I would just offer up that if that's something that people want to explore more, please reach out. I'm pretty accessible. Anyone who knows me can share that I'm pretty accessible, and so I'm just really grateful for this time, Kevin. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share and to connect. I mean, we keep seeing each other on conference calls, but we've never actually talked face to face, and so I'm super grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Trae. I mean, it's fantastic. I know we had you down for dates, and unfortunately things changed. So I'm so glad we actually got to have this discussion, and really looking forward to many others. And please, to the community, to those who are watching this live, to those who are watching the recording, take Trae up on her offer. The one thing about the community and the collaborative nature of it is something that is so special. It's what makes so many people, want to be part of the community. And so, Trae, thanks for being, one of those folks. And we'll see you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you so much. So that was Trae Ashlie-Garen from Calgary, Canada. Really great to chat to her, and just so much, just another reminder of how you can look at the EXO model in different ways, how we need to remember that we're all human, and what is that human aspect, and how we ensure that we're thinking about that when we're looking at being exponential, when we're looking towards abundance. And so thanks to everybody for joining us. We'll see you all again next week.